Okay, we do have a live signal. Finally. So listen, everybody, apologies, apologies, apologies. I can't say it enough. First, it was download syndrome on the computers and then weather related issues and microphones, but we're here. We made it. I'm with JB, Six Gun. Um, I was going to post, I did have a picture of this beautiful young lady with a badass shotgun, but I'm thinking to myself, wow, everything that I just been through on Facebook, fighting a battle to get my plays and views back, which I did. I didn't want to set too high of a fire under my own ass, but anyway, here
Yeah,
we
they
both
took
made
that.
it.
I have that picture as my profile. My friend said, "Sign up for TikTok. I want to show you something." And so I did. I put my profile last about a week, and they sent me a notice telling me they were taking it off.
Right,
All right,
right. So
whatever.
I went with the
I didn't
one that was
replace it. I just left it.
right. I went with the one that was a little bit more or less and a little bit more tasteful, not for any particular reason, but we're in this point in time of psychological warfare and everything else that we go through. So I will ask this as a favor to you. We're going to try to do the best we can on whatever we talk about, but we won't get too uh, because we are under a watchful eye as target individuals. But yeah, as I was sharing with you, Jenny, was I came across some people who liked me a lot and said, Michael, I'm seeing views all over the place. I said, well, send me the highest numbers and tell me where they're at. And they did. So then I'm looking at my own page and I'm saying, this just doesn't add up. And for the longest
No.
point in time, over the last year, I was saying to myself, wow, is everybody just leaving at this place or what's the problem? So writing to them and raising holy hell the best way I could, trying to stand up for myself because a beautiful lady named Maria Wheatley said, Michael, you have worth, just fight the battle. And to me, that was my stepping stone to go do it. And instantly I started posting the comparables, and when I did it, guess
Right.
what? They fixed everything. And over a
Boom.
year,
Yeah.
probably 100,000 less views, and today they're all reappearing. But they also asked for my help. If you find any more issues, please send them to us, and we will investigate it further. So,
Okay.
how far do I need to go? You know,
Yeah.
but
Well, you just have to keep a watchful eye. And I know we've talked about this a lot, and I know it's not a monetary thing for you, but you work hard to get these, you know, messages and thoughts and things out there, and to, you want to see that it's had some momentum. You don't want to turn around and feel defeated every time you do something, or share something. And
yeah,
then not you just don't even know either. You don't even know what the reality of it is, you know? Because you could have all kinds of people watching and just not have an accurate number.
right.
And then it's like, well, which way where do I put my concentration? So I would find that to be extremely aggravating.
Yeah,
Sorry, that's but I'm
it
not
was.
surprised by it. I'm not surprised at all.
Right, and it was. But anyway, welcome everybody to America and Crisis. Again, just if you're just joining me, because we're getting a few people here and there stepping in. Hello, good evening to you all. I wish you well. Hope everything's well for you. It is Friday, and it is May 17th. I think it's yeah. I think we're in May.
Yep.
Maybe.
May, and I'm pretty sure it's 2024.
Is
I'm
it? I
thinking.
hope so because I am waiting for something to just happen in a good way. So I know you're probably watching a lot of the things that are going on up in the Capitol and up in the White House and things like that. You may not know this, but you may have caught it. But a little bit of a cat fight going on up there between the ladies, Marjorie Taylor Greene and AOC, and some others, and comments about eyelashes and maybe a wig. And you know,
I actually don't pay any attention to that because I would go bonkers. I
well,
really would go. I used to. I used to just really watch politics, and I kind of had to just tune out because I just can't. I check in here and there, but I just get. I don't know. I have a certain view about all of it. I think it's just all a rigged game anyway, and so I don't know. I'm in that spot where it's like I know we should know what's going on, and so shame on me for not knowing more. You'll have to just keep me posted on what's important, Michael.
All you have to
But
do is
fill
look at
me in.
me.
I want to hear about the eyelashes and wig. Fill me in.
Oh, it was just comments between Marjorie Taylor Greene and some of the constituents up there that all hold a seat next to her as an equal and so forth, male and female. And it turned out to
Yeah.
be kind of radically crazy. The girls were swinging. We'll call it a cat fight.
I was gonna say
Verbal,
cat fighting over
yeah,
eyelashes. That sounds like a cat fight.
yeah,
Taking the
yeah.
earrings off.
Right. And I don't want to get into who they were, what the cultures involved were, and all these other things, but it was a heated event, and it was pretty magnificent in certain ways, because we're really hearing the reality when you see this and hear it of what's really going on in Washington in ways. And we know that there's many more things than just that. I mean, we're what if anybody is watching when I do this production of this podcast, it's a little bit about the facts of every day, what is going on, and um, you know we have scenarios like once upon a time that mattered where you have certain privileges, a client attorney privileges, and yet you have a president's attorney testifying against him. But there was a loophole that they screwed up on, and I'm sure um, you know a certain legal team's going to make the best of it because it does present an issue in their defense against him. We'll just say with that. So there's just things going on all over the place, and I wanted to bring a
Yeah.
couple of those things up because it's like tonight's what's pissing you off. Somebody tell me what's going on. Um,
Yeah.
and all we
Well,
can
I
do is
have a question for you
sure, go ahead.
regarding that. I was listening to something the other day, and it got me really thinking about that. And to be prosecuting a president, especially over things we know they've all done, if he even did it, whatever, we have full on war criminals that are former presidents, and they've not gone after them. And it just makes me wonder, like, so does that mean going forward now that's going to be a thing? We're gonna we're gonna go after presidents for, I don't know, what I consider kind of minor stuff. Like it's stuff they all do. So then isn't shouldn't they all be held accountable? Because let's just like take a little trip down memory lane, and we have full on war criminals. So I just don't. I'm not saying they shouldn't be held accountable for crimes they commit, right? But if you're going to do it to one, then you should do it to all of them, or do it. I don't know. This is why I step away from this stuff because it makes my brain feel like scrambled eggs, kind of. That's what pisses me off, is because it isn't just, it isn't fair, it isn't right. And I don't know. And I don't know. I just feel like we're already under attack. People, like we were talking about last time, we have psychological warfare going on against us all the time, and it's only going to get worse. You can see the steps they're taking to increase that. We're on like a technological level. So I don't know. I just feel like there's bigger fish to fry.
Well, there are, and I think there might be references as to why we see what we see. Possibly we could go all over the place with this as are we watching all this for something that's to just put us into a different mind frame, a mindset of different
Yeah.
thought? Or, and as you said, haven't they all? Of course they all, but some have gone to the extreme, others haven't. How far do they go? Well, President Trump himself even said not long ago that no president should be held accountable. If that's the case, then we're never going to be able to rectify scenarios of issues that have occurred in the last 5, 6 years, 10 years,
right.
15 years, also. So
20, it goes on and on. So,
right, and how far?
it's like, where do you, so why do they start? I mean, I guess I kind of feel like, why are they starting now? Like, why, I don't know. It's just so crazy to me. I'm not a Trumper. I'm not and that's just the point. Is I think they're all on the same team. I don't really believe there's a whole lot of difference between the parties. It's just what they present to the public. But behind the scenes, I'm sure they all are buddies on one level or another. So
Yeah,
I
that
don't
could be.
know though. I'm so cynical about it. I really am. I'm just.
I
And
hear you.
I could be totally wrong, but I see it as a uniparty. I really do. Um, and Trump may be an outlier. He may not be. I know he's got these bloodlines that go back that are worthy of some scrutiny. That kind of put him in a category like the rest of them. So it's just, I don't know though. I'm so full of conspiracy theories. It's
All
not
right.
even
Why don't we
funny.
why don't we move into that typical scenario? Why is it that you want to Why is it that you want to come on tonight? Then, because I don't know how far you want to go down any rabbit hole. Why don't you express to me what is it on your mind?
Oh, nothing in particular. I just like talking with you, and yeah, we just had talked about just chatting and chatting it up, and I figured you would lead, and we'd go from there. I feel a little bit stupid because I don't know the current events of all these things that are going on. In
Don't feel
particular, because I just don't, my nose is in other things, kind of.
I get that.
So I'm sorry. I should have been maybe
Don't be don't
better
be
prepared or something.
don't be sorry. Don't be sorry.
Yeah,
Just be fruitful. I know that you're on the road a lot. I know that you're traveling. I know that you're an essential out there doing things for America. You live positively, and I talk to you.
yeah,
I know where you are in your heart. So you didn't
yeah,
hear about this, you didn't hear about that, no big deal. But America
yeah,
likes to know that I'm listening for them to talk about something
yeah.
of it.
We see
So
America. We see it. Like it's. I don't know. It kind of puts you in this strange headspace. We're literally in a box all the time, and we're seeing, just um. I guess and this is just the world we live in, but we drive through so much beautiful country, and we'll be going through the mountains and you know uh just the countryside, and it's so gorgeous, and you go through these little towns, and they're you think often like, that's where I would want to live. And then some trips were literally on the New Jersey Turnpike, and it just seems like this really strange dichotomy. A lot of it is suburban sprawl and a lot of unnecessary, what seems to me anyway. People need things, they need food, they need products, what have you. But there's just this absolute overload that, I look around and I think this is not sustainable most of the time. And then, we'll be trucking down the road a little further, and then we're back in the countryside or back in the mountains. And I'll tell you, it just feels more peaceful. And we're just in this box rolling, and it's strange. Even seeing, looking at bumper stickers, and I don't know, you just get this feel for um, when you're in busier areas, you get this vibe that things are just on this precipice, about to pop off. Everybody's pissed off about something or another, and you don't always know exactly what it is or what their motives are. But it is a strange point of view, I'll tell you, driving a truck. Um, you just get a strange, or not a strange, but a different view of the country. It's not all through the screen. You're literally rolling through a lot of it, and everybody's just out there trying to make their way. I guess that's one thing I would say is, you do see you just feel like you see a lot of worker ants. And then so when I look at these people that are running the country, in my opinion, into the ground. You know, um, they're not in touch with us. They are not in touch with we regular people that keep the economy in the country going, that
Right.
actually keep it rolling. And it just couldn't be more evident, especially if they're fighting over wigs and eyelashes. I mean, that just tells you something right there, you know? So what's pissing me off? I guess what's pissing me off is how expensive everything is. What's pissing me off is different agendas that are being jammed down our throats that I think everybody should live the way they want. Doesn't mean that, you know, that I have to embrace every single thing,
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't want to offend anybody at all because I want to be me. I want people to be them, but at the same time, it, we know there are these false agendas out there, and I have my own thoughts as to why they are, but I don't know. I think sometimes I'll look at like the new world order globalist kind of agendas that are going on, and you in a way stop paying attention to the minutia here, so I don't know. I just feel like we are barreling towards something that's not good for any of us, you know.
Right. Right.
And we either need to get our hands on the reins. Which I don't know how to do. I don't know. I don't know what we're as individuals, what we're even supposed to really do. I've lost faith that voting really matters, you know. So I don't know. I would love to hear your thoughts on it because, yeah, that's where I'm at. I've just sort of, I wouldn't say given up, but
Well, all right. Let me put some input here. All right. First off, there's nothing wrong with being lost. I'm lost. I get lost. I get diverted. I get, where my mind at time, like yours, in the words you said, gets scrambled.
yeah,
It's sad with what we have to deal with because we have placed politically people in leadership roles who have a different agenda on humanity, and it is on humanity.
yeah,
As you
that's
said,
what I'm,
you travel through this country, you see beautiful places that you could almost live within, but that's
oh,
almost
yeah.
like that's all. But that's almost like going into a bar and seeing a gorgeous woman until you hear from Peter or Paul next to you. It said, on the outside, it's beautiful, but when you get to know her up here, she's
It's
spiteful,
crazy.
she's vindictive, and she'll cut your throat. And
Yeah,
you can be manipulated by what you see on everyday
yeah,
life. Just
yeah,
traveling through something doesn't mean that the darkness of Satan doesn't go on in the woods there. So
yeah,
yeah, what do you have? It's all over the United States of America in some way. And how do we keep peace? Tell everybody to live the life they want to live. Just don't jam it down our throats.
yeah,
Stay strong.
yeah,
Stay abundant. How do we fix anything? I don't think any of us really know the answer, but we only have one way that seems logical to go. And that is still, no matter how it may feel, is the only thing left is voting for what you believe in. And we only have one alternative here. That's all we're ever going to have. And we got to hope that that decision that we make for that November 5th day comes to a reality, whether he'll just be a cushion for 4 years because he has a different mentality to come in and lead under and fight back the best he can, because as a president, he can do things under executive powers, executive orders, but he's only a president of a corporation. Who
that's
are the others that are
that's where
the
I
board
get
of
really
directors?
stuck. That's where I'm like, we don't even know who's actually running things really.
Right.
Is my feeling. And when I look at people like, your typical Klaus Schwab, Yuval Harari, these Bill Gates, and some of these other folks that are deciding what's best for us when they don't know any of us, like they don't really understand or they think they understand people, I guess. Maybe they do understand us, but they don't care. That's the thing. They're not looking out for our best interest. I don't believe that for a moment. Now the things you hear them say and the things that are on these, websites, and so um, it just gets sort of disheartening. And I will just be totally honest with you. I've turned my attention to the Bible because I'm like, it really does feel like we are on a precipice, and I'm sure for a lot of people feel that we're on this powder keg, but it's all depends on your worldview of what you think that powder keg is, like what you think that crossing that line means. So you hear some people and they think we're all about to ascend to some other level of consciousness. That would be great. I don't know. Um, some people think we're in biblical end times. That honestly kind of feels that way to me. Um, but I don't claim to know. I don't know, but I just you do. I mean, do you not feel that too, Michael? That everything is like at this boiling point, and where do we go next? If I told Joe, I said before, and I've done this a ton of times, where I say, I'll never do this, or I won't ever do that again, or I will always do that. And that's just not true. We amend things all the time, or at least I do. So, I said before, I'm done with voting, but I'll tell you, if it comes down to it, I don't really see these days. I never called myself a Republican before. I was always would have thought I was a Democrat. Not anymore. I feel like these people are nuts. You know, not all Democrats, obviously, but like what we are seeing from that party is kind of wild to me. I said, "Wow, I never thought I would be a Christian gun-toting Republican or conservative. Never would I have thought I would describe myself that way." But that is seemingly, you know, who that's just who I am these days, I guess. But I don't know that I'm not sure that I've changed so much. I just think the whole landscape has shifted, is what it feels like.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's strange. It's really strange.
Well, I
It's
mean,
it's hard when you don't even know where you fit into it.
you're right, exactly. But you have to find a comfort zone for yourself somehow, some way, and that means you're going to dictate to yourself, for your own betterment as to how you need to illustrate that every day in your life by taking steps this way or that way. And sometimes you may take them that way or in this direction, and then there's a wall there that that you don't agree with, and sometimes you're just better off backing off and saying, I'll go in the other direction. So you walk around the issue of the problem. And
Yeah.
interesting that you brought up, like that there are a lot of people right now who feel that we are elevating. Which part of what we are going through and suffering means love and elevation? I'm not trying to come down on people because I have great friends in big places, book authors, show people that I talk to, and I understand that they have these great ideas of what they believe is factual fact, whether through an abduction that they were told something or whatever. But if that's all the case scenario of truth, why every day is it more complicated and we do not see a better sight of a rainbow, but we see better facts of negativity? And that doesn't seem to be elevating us anywhere, although maybe within that message is the true message might be we all need to get along better. And,
Oh yeah.
I think everybody's for it if everybody just goes about it peacefully, because I think the Constitution represents different criterias. As long as you are a human being born in the United States of America, your rights will be not infringed upon. But we are every day infringed upon in our rights that comes from what we see as an opposition. But again, it's hard for me to even debate with some people who theorize into that at this point, because the only thing at the end of what we're seeing right now is a worsening of an environment to the United States. where our children are, where the education's important. And why is it like that? And why are we in that point, or place and point of it? It's hard to say, but we know that the entirety of a situation seemed to manipulate generational segments of people by putting segments of generations in different criteria blocks so they could separate us and divide us. Like a parent
Yeah.
is no longer a parent, but school,
The-
well, the school was responsible for your child. I mean,
right.
it's unfounded what we hear about, and I don't see
Yeah.
this. I'm not saying that the future somewhere somehow it may be there, because the white hats are telling something on one side and then we're hearing something on the other side. And then Steve Bannon was on the other day and said if this election basically does not come out because we sat back and
Yeah.
avoided it, then we are going to be in a whole different direction of worsening. That's the
Yeah.
best, easiest way
Well,
I
I can't, at this point, I can't see voting for anybody other than Trump. I just don't, like, if I'm going to vote, it will be for him, because I just don't see any other um, options. And it's not like, well, and I hate that feeling too. I remember hearing this and reading this before. People would say, well, you know, parts of his personality are crass and this and that. He's the lesser of two evils. I hate that. I know it's just reality, that nobody's perfect, nobody checks every single box and so forth. But I hate that. I hate that thought of that you have to just go with the person that's the least evil. It's like, yeah, is there nobody that um, qualifies for this job that? But I don't think he's evil. I don't know. I don't know the man. But I don't know. I definitely know I don't like what I see from the other side at all.
right.
Not even a little bit. And so I'm not even sure what other candidates are running, to be honest with you. So I feel kind of stupid. Like, I really am not one to really comment on a lot of this. One thing I would bring up in particular that really bothered me was I saw Kamala Harris come out and with this swagger and this like sort of cockiness, talking about having $750 million for this red flag fund to, and she was like saying to the law enforcement agencies, ask for this money, um, and to go after people. This is, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but this is how it all has read to me, is to go after responsible registered gun owners, to go house to house and check their firearms. And it's not gone well, I'll tell you that. People have died. And because, like so many people, like if we give up our guns, we're screwed. That is constitutional. I've got a copy of the Constitution in my purse. There is to be no infringement on our Second Amendment rights whatsoever. And the gun laws are just so crazy and convoluted and just, I don't know. A lot of it is just extortion, in my opinion, but, just all the arbitrary laws in there. Now, I'm not saying people should have nuclear weapons, obviously not. But to go house to house, and I've seen lawyers on YouTube talking about if they come to your house, how to handle it, what to do. And I think this is just the beginning of this. And I remember seeing John D'Souza talking about this a long time ago. He said, and he's a former FBI agent, and he was saying, don't register your guns because then you know exactly where to come and get them. I was like, wow, that was shocking to me to hear from a former FBI agent.
He wasn't
So
wrong.
I think, I know. but this is what I talk about. That's what I mean. Like when you talk about like kind of where things are headed, people give up their guns. They're nuts. I don't want to shoot anybody. I don't want to shoot an animal. Like I don't. I like to shoot at dirt and targets. Okay, but I'm not. I don't. I that's just. I don't have. Just because I love guns doesn't mean I want to hurt anybody.
Right.
Very too much to the contrary. But I am not gonna be hurt by someone else either. You know, and um, we just can't. I don't know. We just can't allow that. We cannot allow that to happen.
Well, I agree with you totally, but I think too, you're mentioning this scenario of this agent was because there were tidbits of information already being presented and pushed behind the scenes, but in a minor way to get points across. And the people who were willing enough to say, well, you guys may be telling me this in my left ear, but what's going to come out of my mouth is going to be what I believe in. And I think that's what this guy said. And this is circumstances that go beyond just that part of our rights to bear arms and how
Yeah.
they're significant. Now, you try to be a good model citizen, though. You pay for your driver's license, your driving insurance, your gun
Yeah.
permits, your fishing
Right.
license, in all these different scenarios. You try to be a model citizen, even though it's
Law abiding. Yeah.
it's a playbook of taxation against us
Right.
and control. So we're
Right.
controlled, even though we think we're an adult in charge of our life, we're not. But if
I know. I laugh when you say, "Oh, we are." I mean, I guess if you where it's where you want to place the bar. You can say we're free. Yeah, maybe compared to like China, but to say we're the freest country in the world or that ever existed or that's crazy. We
right,
are we like you just mentioned how many different permits to do the most basic things. Like you have to register for everything, get a license, a permit, a this, a that, and the taxation on everybody is just insane. Um, and so, yeah, that's it's sort of funny to me that people, but I still, and then the surveillance, don't get me started on that. The surveillance we're under is insane. And it's interesting to me how, Edward Snowden came out and it was a big deal for a minute. And like everything else, it just sort of fades into the background and people just they want their devices like what we're talking on right now, and so we just accept these things, the censorship on YouTube, and I don't know what it's like on Facebook, but um all the censorship going on, and we get chipped away at little by little by little, and we allow and we allow and we allow. Before you know it, we are going to be under absolute and total control,
right, right. And
verbally and probably physically, too.
I think there's going to be issues no matter what happens after November 5th that are going to compromise many things that we still won't want to see. The same as when we saw, Mr. Trump, become president of the United States the first time. Um, they went after him from day one. They went
Right.
after him from the time that he announced that he would run for president. He became then the villain. And why was he the
Yeah.
villain? It's because a lot of the things that become negative in people's minds is the fact of the manipulation through the media, and that they're all
Yeah.
owned by certain elites in the world
Yeah.
and certain structures of corporation. And they're told to compound this information and pound it and manipulate our minds every day
Yeah.
of our
It's
life.
psychological warfare for sure. I'll tell you, Michael.
Yeah,
I mean, and I was in a really totally different place in my life. So, just I don't want to get into all of it, but I was just in very different circumstances and just my life just looked very, very different. Um, and I remember being like so upset when he won. I didn't want Hillary to win either. That was the thing. Like I didn't want her to win either, but I felt like first of all there was just so much stuff I didn't know. I wasn't aware of because of the circumstances of my life. I was completely checked out. So I just didn't know about a lot of stuff that was going on. But I had this panic about me. And then it was like I got the scales peeled off over a lot of things. And I thought, and that's what I mean. Like, what if they're going to go after him? If the justice system, I mean, going to go after him, they're not going to go after her. Are you joking me? And many preceding her. Well, she wasn't a president, but you know what I mean. Still, total criminal. Her and her husband both. So, in my opinion, but yeah, like I said, at this point, just the way I feel and see things now, if I do end up voting, and you are making me feel like I probably should. I've had a lot of people kind of rag on me about that.
Another one.
That it's my duty. Yeah, no, it's fair because
It is our duty. We have nothing else. That's. I mean, if we want things, the possibility of things to be better, we have to go with the best that we have. And from the time that he lost, a so-called loss of the past election.
I can't believe that that's even true. I don't.
But you can't talk about it. See, that's the whole thing. That's the power of the strength that they truly had, and how they controlled the system on both sides. Because there were people on both sides that did very naughty things. Bottom line, they really did. And because they're running under a party does not mean that they're not in bed with the others.
Right.
And it's always been that way. And here you have this impartial guy, for whatever reason, steps into the arena. Some say because the military came to him, the White Hats, somebody came to him, said, we really need you to do this, to expose this. Because if we go about this any other way, this is all going to come back faster than we can do anything about it. So by getting him back in now, I think it's what the public is demanding, because they've seen that he at least had logic behind his leadership. And as you said yourself, you've seen no logic in the leadership that we are under now by any means.
I don't even think that guy's a real person. I don't. I think it's like a skin suit robot. Something like my mom's like, oh, he's just an old man. He's, and I'm like, I'm not even convinced that is a real person. I'm serious. He just seems so disconnected, and it's not just the stumbling and the over his words or literally falling all over the place. I'm just seriously, I know you probably think I'm nuts, but I'm like, what is actually going on? Is that an AI robot? I don't even know what, or an actor we were watching something, and this person took this mask off. You wouldn't have believed that was not a real. I mean, that stuff is getting so good. They don't look like necessarily so much like masks anymore. It was some actress that was, was looking like someone else, and she pulled it off, and she was a totally different person. And I was like, is that what's going on with Joe Biden? I don't even know. But something's not normal. I'll tell you that. That's all I can really tell you. It's something not normal happening.
It's spookier than Halloween, because they've been doing those artificial mask enhancements for the past 45 years. They started doing them, I think, when George Bush was the head of the CIA. And there were reasons why they did it. They did it because they felt they could protect presidents. And I think they have utilized that same type of scenario. That's why there are 2 limousines. That's why there are two airplanes.
Yeah, there's always been lookalikes and stuff like that, but I think this is something different. This is like, I'm not even sure that's him. I've seen where, and I realize, like, we all get, long in the tooth or whatever, but as we get older, but I had seen where some people were comparing like specific features from kind of a before and now, and it was like, that is not even the same dude, but anything can be changed with Photoshop and stuff too. That's another thing. It's just so hard to even know really what to believe, what you're seeing with between CGI and Photoshop and AI. It's like, I can remember a while back, it would just pop. This was a handful of years ago, but it would just pop up on my phone like this face, and it would tell you to like. I was like, "What even is this?" And I'm looking, and I realized later it was they. As I'm staring at this face on my phone, and it's just a pop up thing. Like I didn't go looking for it, and it's studying my face, and so it's AI is gathering from all these individuals, all these, your pores and all these minute detailed features to for it to get better and better at looking like a real person,
Right.
because it's in this like uncanny valley area, where you can tell there's just something off about certain things, images of people that you're looking at, and there's just something that's just not quite right. And I think that's what they call the uncanny valley, where your mind picks up that it's just not really a person. There's just something off there.
Kind of
But I
like a
think they,
Mandela effect.
yeah, well, AI was trying to perfect so that they could make a image of people that's viable, that you would buy and sell. This other little short of what's his face, um, Will Smith, and he was like,
Oh,
the back
green screen.
drops and this and that, and he's like, nothing's real, like nothing, you know.
And that's
And
true.
I don't know. There's just so many things, and it just makes you go like, what even is reality of what we're seeing? What do we see
Yeah.
is
Well, when you look at
actually the truth?
right, but when you look at the overall picture, the more you can manipulate, the more confusion, because there's going to be
Absolutely.
different mentality levels for acceptance and non-acceptance. So it was important for them to infiltrate our minds completely, hoping that
Yeah.
one issue scenario pulls you in their direction somehow. I mean, it's the
Hmm.
same. It's the same with the picture of I don't even want to call him a king because I don't think anybody deserves a label. But we just watched that revealing of the painting that came out, and how people were even looking at that, and even the media at the very end of it. And I was actually watching a program, left news program. They even made mention at the end that the devil may have something to do with this, and that's
Yeah.
how they
Oh,
look
you're
at it.
the blood portrait or whatever.
Yeah.
That was creepy. Joe showed that to me yesterday. I hadn't seen that, and I said, "What even is that?" And I said, "What's the original one?" He showed me the original. I'm like, "Why? That's just so creepy in and of itself, even the original." But when you look at the negative, and then you see that, I think the devil he is working overtime for real, and I don't mean that metaphorically. I really
No,
believe that sincerely, wholeheartedly.
well, we
Um,
call that specimen that was created about 250 years ago, the devil. But the truth of the matter is, it's a bloodline, and you know that. You've done a lot of research on this avenue. I know you have, and it goes
yeah,
back into ancient times and ancient beliefs, and they lived different. They worshipped certain genders. We'll just say, because it just wasn't male and female. There was
right,
some joint genders, we'll call them, instead of saying hermaphrodite, but that's
right,
exactly what they were. And if you were
yeah.
that way, if you were that lucky, you were put on a totem pole. And that's basically what they try to do. And that's why we see all this blands. I'm a cat, I'm a bird, I
Right.
mean, in schools right now, one of the schools
Yeah,
right now fought so hard for their child who says that they are a cat. They had to put a litter box in the bathroom for this child.
that's what I'm talking about when I said these agendas being pushed, and we're all supposed to embrace it. There's a difference between accepting something as like, okay, we're all gonna just live in peace. You do you, I do me, whatever. But there's a difference between acceptance and them trying to force you to embrace it.
Yeah.
I'm not getting behind any of that craziness. I'm sorry.
But
Um,
you know what? If there's a good point that you bring up, but there's also an illogical definition for how the equalization of it. If they push it on us, which they will one way or another, our children are still going to see this negativity, which we understand is
Yeah.
our belief is saying this is just negative. It's wrong. It doesn't belong. But
Yeah.
if we give it acceptance, we allow them to continue with it also.
Yeah.
So there is things that are going to
Yeah.
be
Where is that
very
line?
difficult.
Where do you draw that line in the sand of now we are
Bingo.
getting into, I'm thinking, when I saw Kamala Harris talk about that $750 million for this red flag fund, I'm like, why don't you put that into mental health services? Because that is clearly way more needed than what you're doing this for. Instead of going after responsible registered gun owners, why don't you put that into mental health funds for people? Because I feel like the people have just gone crazy. It's just gone bonkers. What we think is normal. I mean, how I've seen so many testimonies from younger people who, like, just as an example, there was this, but there's several of them. But there was this young girl who said, I didn't even know what trans was. It was just kept popping up on my phone. And so she went through all of this at 13, had a full mastectomy, and now she regrets it.
That
Like,
will
how can you even allow a decision like that to be made before a person is even to where, like, our typical childbearing age? I mean, I'm telling you one thing. When you're in your teenage years, you shouldn't be making decisions about anything except for maybe, like, what part-time job to have or something, or what sport to play, because your hormones and your everything is just so out of control. I don't know how you can but they're like, I saw, I'm so sorry, I'm all over the place, but this doesn't have to do with this. But this guy was going around interviewing these people on a college campus, and he was asking all the people, do you think that a 12-year-old should be allowed to get a tattoo? They're like, oh, most definitely not. Most definitely not. They're too young for that. Then he goes and asks the same people, should they be able to take hormones or have, these surgeries? And they're like, oh, yeah, because they know who they are. And it's like, really? So, no, not that I want them to have a tattoo either, but so no tattoo, because they can't, that's for life and they're stuck with that. So they shouldn't make that decision, but they should be able to cut body parts off and change their sex at that age. It just shows you that these agendas are working on people. It just shows you that these, and I think they're totally just, it's like I said, psychological warfare on
Yeah.
people. And some people snap out of it. Some people come like full circle and are like, whoa, what did I just go through? What did I just put my whole family through and myself through? Because that none of that was real, you know?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I think people really need to really think hard before, um, and this psychological warfare has been going on forever. It's not like that's a new thing. I think what's new is that your average person is starting to catch on to it,
And
Um,
I think that's true because what we see in post, I call it sometimes regurgitation, but I think maybe I was wrong for saying wash, rinse, and repeat. There could be just that there are people out there. It took them till now to get to the point, and why they posted that point was because that's the one that opened their eyes. And we
yeah.
shouldn't be too hard on people, even if we're seeing
No.
something 10 or 15 times 4 years later. It may have
Yeah.
been that could have been the drawing card that said, holy shit, I
Yeah.
didn't know all this. And
Yeah.
that is the point of transitioning of this new higher level of consciousness, the
Yeah.
awakening of what consciousness is. Not that something is going to elevate us to a more beautiful world, but
Right.
a better way to analyze and maybe conquer the things that we need to conquer as we see it. And
Right.
again, there's always going to be a divide no matter how we go about it, and there's always going
Right.
to be dishonesty, but we could give it one hell of a shot because as humans together, I think we all have the same criterias of abilities, And there will be some who will be on the right, some will be on the left, some are going to be on the in the middle, but they're going to be on the right just because they find it to be the safer place to go into November on. But like you said,
Right.
it doesn't matter if it's about Furbies or trans this or transhumanisms and I mean, because the depth and complexity of the problems of issues that we've seen them release are in the thousands. I mean, I was actually writing down a list of everything that had occurred from the time of the transition of the new president coming in and what he did from the moment of canceling and ripping up all Donald Trump's executive orders in place. And then from that point, the chaos that started. It's literally into the thousands of
Yeah.
scenarios, of issues, of changes. And
Yeah.
that is
And just all
hard.
overlapping. Yeah.
Yes,
And
one
you
right
know, you keep
after another.
people, and this is it, is you just keep people spun and confused about reality itself, you know, that, yeah, so many times, like, you know, if you're watching videos on YouTube or something and you see in the comments, the people will say, oh, they're just sheep. Listen, we were all born into indoctrination. Every one of us. And some people, maybe they were fortunate enough to not have scales on their eyes to begin with. They could see it clearly. I don't know what kind of brain makeup that is, whatever. God bless them. I wish I were that person, but I can't say that. I have fallen for all sorts of things in my life. And it hasn't been until like the last, I don't know how many years, but and it's not like it all came off at once. It's like little by little you start to see the reality of things and you realize what the domino effect is like. So this cause and effect, right?
Yeah.
And so but you've got to be willing to look at the bigger picture, I think. And you know, they always say follow the money. Well, there's that, but then there's also like, uh, you know, follow this through to its end. Is that something that's going to be good for us in the long term? Is it sustainable for human life? You know, for like literally for human existence? A lot of things aren't. And if you like just on the trans topic or whatever, you know, what do we see on the this is where so many conspiracy theories I think people are realizing are not theories, and there's tons of conspiracies that go on, right? That's not like it doesn't make it mean it's a fake thing, but they want population control, you know. And I know I never had children, you know, and I wasn't a feminist. I had things happen in my life that I thought the world's just too scary. I just wasn't going to do it. But isn't that just it though? Like you want to put people in this fear or in the certain mindset, and you don't even realize you're being herded along, you know? You
Right.
don't realize it until you do. And so I don't know. I do think there are many people waking up to a lot of things, but I can also see where I thought I woke up to one thing and I realized later I was going down a, a different wrong track, you know?
Yeah.
When you get in, like before we got on here, I had a thing on about the what do you call it, the C5 thing, you know, the
Setting.
Stephen Greer,
Yeah.
yeah, contacting the aliens, and he was talking about, he had pictures of this light being, and you know, my first thought was, um yeah, even Satan can appear as an angel of light, right? And so we don't know what all these things are. We've talked about Dogman, um, Joe's Encounter. You know, we talk all the time. Still, of course, it's a major part of, you know, our lives, and it's like, what even was that? Okay, we know the government. Uh, you know, there was a government asset that should put alarm bells off in people's minds. Just that. What is our government doing with things like this? But then you start to track this back even further, like, okay, get over the asset part and all of that. These are real things running around. What are they? Where are they from? Are they from outer space? Are they chimera of the Nephilim? It just opens up 1,000 more questions, just that one topic, right? Just that one thing. And so when you look at all of these things going on, you just kind of can't help but wonder what is really reality. So then when it comes to something like voting, I'm sort of like, I don't even what, I don't even it just starts to make it feel like I'm not sure
Well,
how.
again, that was a path of how we were taught, of how we
Yeah,
can make differences. And then you
right.
have to justify, does that make the difference? And will it make all the difference? Well, when there's no
No,
other difference, it just may. So
right.
that's your only option left. And it's
Yeah,
like going to a party and all your girlfriends say, you're going to go, you're going to meet a guy, you're going to have a blast. You go, you have a few drinks, you find someone to talk to or whatever, you're having fun, but then everything goes left in a bad way. And then you say to
yeah,
yourself, I had a gut feeling of that's the one you need to focus on. That same instinct that tells you and gives you the answer. You brought up things about it's not a hypothetical scenario, a reality of scenario of what are we seeing, what's really out there. Reality is not even real. The
yeah.
possibilities that there are beings who can appear to us in any way, shape, or form that they want. But here's something that'll take you down an alley to where it is in level 6, but goes down to a level 7. What's below level 7? That's when they get into the DNA and figuring out and compromising DNAs to bring old world things back again
Yep.
into reality, not just a sheep, not just a woolly mammoth, but maybe other subject matters. But here's one that's even more mind blowing, and it might actually open up some people's eyes of something that came out in a book from a man that was called the Source of a place on S2 Area 51, who broke down in tears through an interview for somebody that was writing a book. And this person said, only if I die, you can tell everybody all of the story. But while I'm alive, you can only utilize words that I will give you. Part of these words were, when we hear about things like in Canada, the Queen, her husband, children missing, and things like that, just being taken. And this was a worldwide phenomena, on people that go missing. But
Yeah.
they would look for children with Down syndrome and mental disabilities. They would take them into these level 6 scenarios where they were the sickest, the number 6 sick. Okay. They would take them down there and they would mutilate them to make them look like aliens. And then
Mm.
they would utilize them for pictures and techniques as to how to do it. Russia was one of the first countries to
I
introduce
remember
that.
reading about that. Yeah.
No one
So,
talks about that, and it's a very sensitive scenario. It really, really
yeah.
is. But if they were taking children like that and mutilating them for their own agenda to say that there are other beings and utilizing these small children, 3 foot tall, and cosmetically altering their appearances that way.
Now, didn't that come up with Roswell?
Well,
Wasn't that something that was talked about with Roswell?
well,
Where,
it's a scenario of it. Yes.
yeah, well, I mean, one person, like I've heard that before, where that was an explanation for the biologics that were supposedly found there. That
Humanoid.
was, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 So
Humanoid.
that, I guess that's just sort of like I spend so much time in these layers, these other layers of stuff that I'm not really paying attention to just like the surface things that are going on, which is probably a mistake because I do live in this world and still you still have to operate in the real world, right? But
Right.
not that the things those aren't real. All of these layers, like you and I both know, there are so many things going on that get called conspiracy theory that are absolutely fact,
Right.
and then there's stuff we don't even know. It's like, how deep does this go? How far does this go? And why? And that's where I start to go, this is just of the devil. Like these things, um, this isn't to, a lot of these things are not to better humanity. This is, it's insidious. A lot of the stuff is insidious, and it's like, so you can call it the devil, Satan, some dark agent. I don't, whatever, whatever your worldview is, when it comes to that. But there's definitely some kind of dark forces working behind the scenes of things, and I don't know a lot about. It seems like I know a lot more about the black hats than I do the white hats. When it comes to that type of thing. And I do hear little things here and there on some channels on Rumble. You don't really hear anything about it on YouTube. That's like the cotton candy stuff YouTube is, it seems like. You got to go to some other platforms to hear about some of these other things. And you do hear the white hats are making progress, and I hope that that's true. I do. I don't mean to have a totally doom and gloom outlook on things, but it just seems like there are just so many wild things going on that I don't know how can it be undone. I'm just not sure. I'm just
I
not
don't think
sure.
anybody is 100% sure or has 100% certainty because of the power, and they flex their power in front of our faces every day. And as
Yeah,
Carmela once said, and we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop. And we're not going to. And I have a video of her saying it
yeah.
publicly.
George Bush Sr., same thing. He's like, this was years ago when that famous quote of his about the New World Order, and we will succeed. He's like so confident. And I don't think, like your average person, I don't think they really look at George Bush Sr. for like what he really had his fingers in.
Oh, yeah. And
And
before him, Prescott Bush.
yes, and again, when you just keep peeling the layers back, this has been going on forever.
Pretty much. Pretty
It
much.
really does go.
The New World Order actually came from a book written by Hitler himself, but I think he had information um, given to him of a scenario to help him articulate when he wrote, and I think it was in 1928. His book title was NWO New World Order. So, and there is dissent there. There's also blood relative, same as Bush and Obama. It was even brought up on a TV show where Obama and I'm sorry, Bush was on a show, and he says, "Are you aware that Ancestry did a test on you, your family, and your tree, and you're actually related to?" And he was like, "Yeah, I did think I heard something, but they know who they're all related to."
Absolutely, they do. Are you kidding me?
They know who they are.
Absolutely, they. I think all of the people who we know, if you're aware of them, then they're the face. It's the people that those layers behind that we don't even know. I think it was actually you who said that to me about like the Rockefellers and some of these. It's like they're not even the real, at the helm. There's layers behind that even, and we will never know who the real, people steering the ship really are. They are so insulated with wealth and power, just sheer power. So, and it's just a tiny little handful of people that make the decisions for all the rest of us. I think we know that. That's fairly obvious, but
I think
it's just getting thrown more and more in our face all the time, I think.
And in a way, I sometimes reflect in my own mind, saying in my own head, America may have been a complete setup. Known back
Yeah.
then that if
Well, they always said it was an experiment, right?
Well, I mean, it's speculated that way. It's the same as we could say this is a God's planet, because what was before the Anunnaki here, where we have a lot of information, the things found that show prudency that there were others here even before they were even written about in the tablets of many sources, of many biblical writings. So who was here before them? We could, we can look at things and go back in that direction, but it is what it is. And I think the
Yeah,
only way to make the best of it, when we're under such a crisis, because, even the media has adopted crisis of my title, but not saying because of me, into a lot of what they speculate on and how they utilize crisis in their dictionary of uh, manipulation. And they do it.
yeah,
They do it.
yeah.
And so, how do we break it? It's going to be a huge task. And I don't know, again, if come November, and there is a change, if there is actually a transition of power in a good way, because they always say transition of power. They worried about Trump. Well, Trump's going to worry if they give it back to him too, because
Yeah,
why? They're going to be right where they were, where it ended. And the thing about it is, he can't come into office and just tear down what they established. There's
right.
too much of an investment already invested, and he's going
Yeah.
to have to continue with a
Work
lot
with
of the
work
agenda.
with what he's got, right? Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. What do? Go tear down all the 5G towers because we know that they're weather manipulation systems? Texas,
right.
Texas got it again last night. When does
Yeah,
Texas not get it because they fight back? Um,
yeah,
and I'm not saying that Abbott's the best governor in the world. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, because certain scenarios of criterias come up there, it seems like, and that is the border crisis, that they are under a punishment, and a lot of people are suffering through devastation. Um,
yeah,
how is it even possible to have things and lower temperature? I mean, it just doesn't even add up. But
yeah.
we have a global climate catastrophe going on, and they have the control switches in their hands. They can,
Right.
and they're controlling the system of everything. So
Yeah,
if you want it to seem like somebody else, like Mother Nature, has her hand in on it, then the government who actually produced the towers, and our military's delivering this stuff with some outside help, of course, because they always try to manipulate a system by also doing outside resourcing for when it comes to contracts and
right.
military contracts, because you
Big
can't talk
time.
to them. It protects them, and they can
Yeah,
get away with basically what they get away with. Last night, I think there was 4 or 5 deaths in Texas. This
yeah.
evening, early this evening in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a place that never experiences this crap, I watched one form in front of me and actually go down about a third of a mile, and it was destructive. So
Wow.
the funniest part about what I saw, though, and I do want to share this with you because I witnessed this firsthand, was how it worked. And I was watching tailings of these clouds drifting down, just drifting down. Now we're around 62 degrees. It wasn't a hot day. Most storms come when you have horrific heats and you're baking and you have two air masses that meet on a lower level atmosphere. There was none of that. It was like as if you were in a tropical forest storm, where you would see like the clouds sort of come pull down, and you would see whipping of rains. And we've been experiencing that every day here in Pittsburgh, every time it rains, every
Wow.
time. But tonight,
Wow.
we had, I think, 3 scenarios where tornadoes actually made landing and it caused
That
damage.
is wild. That's wild. And I'm just gonna backtrack just a little bit and tie this into what you're saying. Because it just, I like to read comments a lot on videos, and just to get an idea of kind of what what
Mhm.
the public is even thinking about things.
That's
And I
all over the
saw,
place.
right, well, I saw a woman the other day. It was this testimony about something else, and this man, he didn't have the look and he had definitely, I mean, I picked up on what he was putting down because I dig into these, black projects and this and that. Well, this woman was like, because he was saying that he worked at Area 51 or S2, S4, something. And she said, well, you would have to be, you would have to be in the military to work at one of those places. And it just was like, are you kidding me? Have you never heard of contracting?
Yeah,
Most things are contracted out. What are you? Because he was saying he was a government contractor, and she was like, no, you couldn't work at a place like that unless you were, in the a branch of the military. And it just, I was like, I'm not trying to put the woman down, but it just shows you how disconnected a lot of people really are, that they wouldn't believe something even that basic.
yeah,
And just not exposed to that, maybe, I don't know. But so to go from that to understanding what you're talking about, that's a chasm, right?
mhm,
To go, if you don't even understand that there are military contractors, and most jobs are contracted out by the military in all these projects, or to even believe that there are these black projects and stuff, that's a huge chasm then to believe that 5G towers are manipulating weather, right?
mhm,
And so this, again, when you're talking about the consciousness, um, elevating that, I think you're right. I think that we are having this domino effect of people waking up to stuff, but it's sort of this knock. You can't expect people to just um, understand these things overnight if you've had no exposure to it, or if you've just chosen to call people like us crazy, all these years. Um, but people are going to have to get on board, because these are realities. These are realities, and you just witnessed it out
yeah,
your window today, you know, and that's pretty frightening to think. You want to take a certain amount of farmland out, flip a switch.
yeah,
That's not even getting into direct energy weapons. I mean, come on,
yeah. Look at
Um,
Canada; it's already started back up.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, you're right. And what part of that is not, a crime as well? Everything that
it's
they
all
are,
criminal. It's
yes,
all criminal.
yeah. It doesn't matter how or what they go about. It reflects to a criminality, and it always does, and it always will. But
And that's why I
again,
say this insidiousness behind so many of these things, where the technology that Tom Horn talks about this, and different ones that are uh, he was a pastor. He passed away, but the technology advancement is great if it were used in good ways, to actually improve humanity. Unfortunately, that's why I said last time we talked, we're not just in a psychological warfare, we're in technological warfare, where all this high advanced technology is being created. And it seems like it's all being created to be used against us, not for humanity. It's to surveil and control and, like you said, manipulate weather and take people out. There's like there's mind control frequency out there. You know about that. That's been going on a long time. And you got to figure, if we're hearing about stuff, it's been going on quite a while, right? It's not like this is just these things are brand new. Um,
they're not. And our
no,
military branches were never set up scientifically to research anything. They outsourced everything because it was necessary, or they went and got what they thought was prudent and just
right.
took it from people. If it
So
was
that's where that
something
puts
that they thought
corporations
was
having that power, not our military.
right,
Our military, they're going to be run by these contractors, really.
and that is the
Where,
black ops. That is how the
yeah,
black ops established itself and contains itself. The
yeah,
other part are the wars that are created by the old men and women and the other agenda people, and our
yeah,
children go and fight the war for them. And
right,
many don't get to return home because it's a scenario that makes everything function for them. because they
Yeah.
look into the worst ways to run it, but the best profitable ways to do it. And
Right.
they crush us with it. And I mean,
Yeah.
I'm working on something right now that I'm going to do a show on, and it's more of a commentary of, like, if I was in a position, even though I don't want to be in the position of, but if I was a president, if I were the president, and I don't want to be it, maybe I could
Yeah, my
do a
dad
better
always said
job than
that too. My
Joe.
dad always like, I would never take that job.
But the criteria that I've written into it that I'm going to do soon is only going to be justifying about take the pressure off humanity and the working man and family and give it back to them, where we, basically, like, no more job paying taxes on your wages. Certain scenarios, licensing, $1.
Mhm.
Terms, $5 in 5 years in Congress, 3 years as a judge. Because if you
Big
don't
time.
do
Yeah.
if you don't do what you do, then is you decombobble them. They can't keep up with the system because they're used to a system that's been so long in place that's constant. But
Right.
if you pull the pieces out of their puzzle all over the
Yeah.
board, and that's why I'm going to do it. When I do that presentation, I don't know who it'll reach, how far it'll get out there, but I think a huge portion of the American population would have to agree with it, including some of the other side. But would they
Yeah.
ever agree to it to see it happen? Probably not. So
Yeah.
that's why I think our vote matters. And
And
why
you
our
and
voice
you would hopefully you would get people in these positions that don't have these secondary and you know uh agendas for wanting to be in office, because that seems like that isn't the end goal anymore. That is a stepping stone to end up being a CEO or on a board or this or that to something else that's just much more profitable. And it seems like the motivations for wanting it's not about public service anymore. Maybe it never was. I don't know. Maybe I believed the lie from I wasn't even alive in the 50s, but that whole scenario where it was a lot about public service and wanting to serve the country versus um using it as maybe it's always been the same. I don't know, but it looked different back then anyway.
Yeah, they
Um
talked the talk, but they didn't walk the true walk. I think it took them a while to break down that system that you're describing. I think there
yeah.
was at points in time integrity there, but it didn't
Yeah.
last. It didn't last because if you weren't going to showboat with them, you weren't going to stay there with them, or you would get no favoritism to your district. You would get no
Yeah.
funding for nothing. So the guy that wanted to come in fought really hard and convinced everybody to get his vote. When he got there and started to raise hell with them, they told him to sit
Mhm.
down, shut his mouth, or he would have nothing for dinner. And
Yeah.
that was the truth of the scenario until he understood how the system of the system of the political agenda worked. When you're on
Yeah.
our team all the way, then we will take care of you. Until then, shut your mouth. And
Right.
people go
This,
there
this is where
thinking
I
nothing.
would rip out, I would absolutely do away with lobbying. That would not be a thing.
Right.
Lobbying would be out because that is what has given, like big pharma and just a lot of different industries so much pull in legislation, and so much power. And this is where I think this is where that shift in it. Maybe it's always been a corporation, and I'm just stupid, but it seems like that's where the shift came to me, where lobbying just got so outrageous. People are. It's like, what is your real view? Because is it the one or your real? Is there any integrity there, or are you just getting paid to take this stance and to vote on this bill this way? It's just like scientists that are owned. Is this really your findings? Is this really how you see it, or are you being paid to have this point of view?
Yeah.
Um,
Wherever government grants and monies go, there is a hand and thumb and control of what they
yeah,
want. There's a special interest involved there. And that's
yeah,
why we see this big debate, I'll leave it on climate. Some saying it exists, others saying you're so full of shit, it's pathetic. And
Right.
even Trump himself said, I still gave them money, but I didn't think it was even worth what I was going to give them. And Joe made sure that got ripped up, and they got tenfolds what Trump was going to give them because he didn't believe in it. He
Yeah.
didn't believe it. But if it wasn't true and there wasn't validation to some of it, why did Tennessee just recently now banned all of it overhead in their airspace? But how will they control that when they weather bomb their next door neighbor states? They're still going to get effects. But what it does do, when you start taking the pieces of the puzzle, that system falls apart too. It has to be all together across the United States in order to work. So if we start removing these pieces, if I was a president, I would, because I would make it happen. I would bring people into my office. These are the things that I never hear because, we go to rallies, we see rallies, we hear a man or a woman or somebody speak, and it's always repetitious about the same thing. It's not hand-picked questions from the audience saying, what's on your mind? Express yourself. Let me answer your questions. That doesn't happen. The only debatable question is we're going to see something upcoming who a man says, not only will I do it once, I'll do it twice because I beat you twice before. He failed miserably twice before, but he's gonna reference his character to take Trump on again. And I think he's going to fail miserably again. The point is, it still reflects to where and when the people sit down with a candidate into the future. Maybe a panel of 50, and it happens 3 or 4 times through a session of an election where they are out on the road and they actually communicate, and there's logic shared between people saying, we want this change. Will you change it for us? And they challenge
I remember a perfect example of that, actually, and it was over the opioid epidemic. None of the candidates were addressing that at all. It was your normal fare, your typical topics, the economy. I don't remember, but whatever, your normal topics that everybody comments on. And it was, I believe it was in New Hampshire, and somebody threw a question at Hillary Clinton about it. And then another candidate, his hairstylist, her son or child or something, son or daughter had OD'd or something, and all of a sudden now all the candidates are all talking about the opioid epidemic. It was not a topic. I just remember that. I was just happened to be watching that, and you could tell they were thrown for a loop, with that question, or she was. And so she was the first one who was, and it was like a town hall thing, and all of a sudden, like, knock-on effect, now they're all including it in their speeches and talking about it. But that's why I say, they're not in touch with people. They want to say that they are, and they'll do these little events where these little town halls or whatever, where they'll be around people. I'm how my brain works. It's like, I wonder how many people are plants. They're they get their question asked because that's the question they want out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are actors, not, normal people. But I think that was one of those actual curveballs, and it put a spotlight on it. And I remember even our local news started doing a piece about the opioid. They called it an epidemic. It was obvious to me because I'll be honest with you, I was in it. That's why I said my life has changed so dramatically. But I was in that boat, and it just felt like, and I knew so many people, but it was not on the main stage of what was being talked about in our country. And you're in a situation, and then you see that it gets no attention. It's like, it was kind of insane, all of a sudden, now it's talked about. Now it's an epidemic. Now they're starting to address it. Now, the sad part is that because of the way the system works, there weren't great solutions. There was more pharmaceuticals put out to counter it was really surrounding the OxyContin, that whole thing. And what they did to answer that was a lot of methadone clinics and Suboxone and stuff. So it was
Yeah.
just like one hand, out of one pocket of pharmaceuticals into the other,
Yeah.
And so it wasn't, these aren't great humanity serving solutions, but, that's just one example anyway, that I guess just was close to me. And so I remember that, but you're right. I think they're very out of touch with just regular people and responding to that. Especially when politicians start getting, and see, I guess that's probably what turned me off a lot about Trump was I don't like the celebrity coming in, like the celebrity part. That's not what we should have. I'd rather see, just your average, I don't even know how to say it, but like, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm trying to say, I guess, but I just don't.
Oh, I
I
get
don't
where
think
you're.
we should turn these people into. And I can't even think. You mentioned her earlier. She goes by her initials. She's one that I think has become like this, like superstar, and with that, with her
AOC.
constituents, AOC or whatever.
Yeah. Well,
What she's nuts,
a lot
but
of a lot of what you say is very constructive and it's criticism, but with positivity, because we're put into this place, and the subject matter is all over it's all over. You catch them off guard or by surprise with a question, it may tell you who that they truly are.
yeah,
On one hand, Trump doesn't may not. Everyone says he's not the best speaker. I just think he was more of a normal guy, like maybe
that's how
better
I see
than
him now.
even though he built a structure around himself and an
Yeah,
enterprise, um,
yeah,
which may be good. But I think people
yeah,
need to get to a point of understanding also. Like President Trump even said to us, if Chicago needs my help, I'll send the military in to clean it up. Well, they wouldn't let him.
yeah,
So he
yeah.
doesn't have hand in control everywhere people think he does. He has
Right.
what's the outer Rome of the United States.
Yeah.
That is his control mechanism. But if somebody were to call him and say, we need this, or that, that's the same that he does to them. The only way
Yeah.
we're going to stop opioids is if you in your cities, in your states, start fighting it for me, with me. But they
Right.
won't.
And quit supplying it.
Supply and
I've
demand and
thought this
cure.
so many times. I remember when I was in that situation, I thought, man, we have so many layers of law enforcement in this country. How is it that there is so many drugs? How is that possible? Except for we know a lot of it is brought in. And so, I mean, you know what I mean, by the powers that be and
Yes,
pharmaceutical companies cranking it out. I remember Joe asked me, he said, well, they don't make Oxycontin anymore, do they? I said, yeah, they do.
it's
Like you
there.
would think they would stop making that drug after what it did to this nation. Nope. It's
Yeah,
still out there. It's still out there.
I
So,
hear you.
but it's money. It's money, money, money. But and that's just one example. But I wanted to tell you because when I talked about, just my whole perception of everything changing, I can remember thinking Trump was nuts for wanting to build the wall. I can remember thinking he must have been a real piece of garbage for his little comment he made, 30 years ago, to a guy, like locker room talk. And you saw what came of that, all the hats and all of that stuff. I mean, I didn't do that stuff, but I just thought, oh, he's disgusting. What one of us would want to be held accountable or held to task like that on something we said to a person off the cuff 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago? So I was under that spell. I will say it. It's the truth. And if we can't admit the truth, then we're not going to get anywhere. But I was under the spell of the psychological warfare against us, against Trump. I believed that and bought it, right? Now I look back and go, oh my word, we got people down there filming droves of soldier looking aged Chinese and South American men coming, just funneling through our border, and our border patrols handing them water and so forth, escorting them in. And to what end? I think you and I both know probably to what end, but it's not good. It's not a good thing. So now I think, man, I can't believe I was ever thought he was nuts for wanting that wall up there, right?
Yeah.
So your perspective changes when you start to get the brainwashing, like actually washing your brain, like start to get the indoctrination off of your brain. And so I don't think you can be hard on people who don't see it the way you do yet. You gotta nurture people along and be kind, and and not just act like you're smarty pants because you see this and they don't. You gotta bring people along to see these truths. But yeah, it's because I like I said, I'll be honest about it. There was a lot of stuff that I'm so embarrassed to say that I fell for, probably still am and don't realize it in some ways. I don't know. I feel like I said, I feel like I got the scales peeled off my eyes though, in many, many ways. And, but we got to be gentle with those who don't see it yet, who don't understand these deeper layered things that go on that really control this whole, not just this country, but the world at large, and where these agendas are trying to take us as humanity and as a whole. And and some people are going to go along willingly. Some people are going to think those things are great, even if they know it's it's just like some people will choose the devil, right? There are
Yeah.
people who happily do that. So I mean, like actual Satanists, or whatever. But
Well, they got people used to money, and of course, there was a welcoming committee out there for people who wanted to play in the agenda of that, and there is a lot of people that rather, even to still today, or
yeah,
their
I
face.
guess it depends on where you think you're going to end up in the, up the ladder, right? Like if you're going to be at the top with the rest of them, you're going to be like, yeah, this is a great idea. These ideas are great.
Until maybe with what we hear, it's how untrue it is. But again, look at just a general family man or woman who needs to strive and work every day because she has children at home and needs to buy shoes and food and laundry detergent and clothes. And when you look at the enormity of how money it needs to be spent in a family, you know, how guilty is anybody for supporting this system? Well, we're all
Yeah.
guilty of it, but you know what? We don't have a freaking choice. A
No, you
lot of,
have to live in this. Like I said, we still got to live in this world.
yes.
You
So
still got to operate in it.
right. So, sometimes I say to myself, maybe I get more out of life if I actually went on the other scenario because I work and I've always tried to be a good person that was constructive to just volunteer my time and conversation and guests that I could bring on to make differences in different subject matters for people. But maybe the true case is maybe I shouldn't be embarrassed in any way to go the other way because the whole world's doing it regardless. One way or
Yeah.
another, fruitfulness is the only way to survive. What's the difference if I have no need for it? Maybe my kids do. Maybe they will. Maybe their future will rely on it. Maybe they'll need more
Yeah.
than what I think I have is enough. I don't know. But yeah, it's that whole element of that position that we're all put and placed on. And sometimes you just have to go to the end of the road the best you can and
Yeah.
hope that the next change makes all the difference for what our own self thoughts are. So anyway,
Right. Well, just, like as an example, Joe and I talk about this pretty often, that I think would be better as a society if we lived we lived more locally, with our food sources and just your goods. And of course, some things are going to have to be shipped, trucked across the country. But if you saw just the insane amount of, it looks like worker ants going down the road, it's just so many semis on the road. It's really inefficient, but it's what we do for a living. It's what we do. Even though we don't think society should work like this, right? Like, we personally believe that society would work better if everybody lived more locally. But that's not the reality we necessarily live in. And the thing is we are the very people trucking stuff across the country. So like I said, you still got to live in this world and find a way to fit into it and operate within it.
Right. I would agree to that.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, even though what is ideal to you doesn't necessarily mean that's what is possible for you, or at least in this moment. And I see why I hate the term off the grid, but I can see why people completely change their lives to do that. And the people I really admire are the people that have just always done that, right? People who've always lived, in the mountains or out, kind of out away from things. And I would love to see my life look like that, but we're getting almost too old for it, really. But you chop your wood, you grow your food, you raise your animals, you know, live as self-sustained as you can. That's how it used to be. Of course, it's how this whole country and the whole world started. But this network of madness and highways and shipping and it's just so crazy to me. But it's what it is. So
yeah, but you
make you
make a good
point.
Ahead. You do make a good point with that. And I think that's part of a question that needs to be asked or would be a great question to be asked during that debate was, because you're going to have to cancel out these borders and close them and secure them and rebuild this country back to what it was 4 years ago. And even, let's say, 25 years ago, where more people enter the reality of structuring America back through America products, American made, America purchasing onlys, and get rid of all this outside resources so we can stabilize this country and take care of our own before we worry about anybody else. Because we've always been the handout to everybody else and never get anything in return. Trillions of dollars are going everywhere else. So these types of things, I think, actually need to be addressed more. And I hope.
And we have so much need. I mean, there are so many people in this country that need help. It just isn't even funny. True. Drugs everywhere, homelessness, just poverty. We should not, we just shouldn't have that level of this in this country. We shouldn't.
No,
and these moves have been made I think my personal opinion is certain moves have been made to put us in this position to weaken us.
Sure.
So we're depending on things from everywhere else. And then just think about, it's not going to take much for these, just one wrench in the system. What do they say? Groceries will be in the stores for 3 days before it's wiped out, Mm-hmm. Like, I'm just saying, like, if something happened where it just shuts one system down, we've gotten to where things are just, one thing is too dependent on the other, and I don't know. I'm having a hard time articulating my thought, but I think you get what I mean. Yeah. I hope you do. Where it just isn't going to take much to throw this system into chaos,
You're right. And that should have been your final thought. So what is your final thought before we go off air?
My final thought is next time I'll be better prepared if we pick a topic at a time.
Look.
No, my final thought is I just have...
Fine.
I enjoyed it.
My type of subject matter. I don't know. I don't know what people look at every day. I ask questions.
Yeah.
or bring
Right.
up something. It's nothing to be ashamed of. You might bring up something that I have no clue about. I have that happen.
I doubt that, Michael. I
Huh?
doubt that.
Oh,
I doubt that.
well, I
You're pretty well read person.
I
My
try to
final
do my
thought is
research.
you. It's not just you, but you're really getting me thinking about the voting thing. So I'm going
Good.
to dedicate some time and thought into that. And yeah, and you're right. There, you got to utilize what we've got, right? We've got to make use of, instead of just feeling defeated and throwing your hands up, which is how I felt. I've
That's
just felt like,
accepting
oh my God,
communism.
what can you even do anyway? What's the point,
Yeah.
But we can, that's not really my spirit, so I can't do that. I can't. But you do question, like, how much of my faith am I putting into a system that's just rigged anyway? When, especially what happened last time, like that should not have gone that way. But we're gonna keep it positive, and
Yeah, and I have a plan to get us through it, because if we go to the vote and we stay there till the end, they'll see the mass numbers. We're victorious. You cannot go there and leave saying I did it, I'm leaving. You got to go there, stay, and stay by all the people that come to vote, and stay until the end, because there's no way they can pull the wool over the eyes of the mass numbers that will be all over America that place that
yeah,
vote for the day. And again, we don't have no other means of anything except to go forward in this and pray to God that the best comes out from it.
right,
However it pans out, however it works, whatever the changes are, we're going to have to give support to who it is in the change. And I'm saying
yeah,
with change, it's almost like and it's not that I fear saying bring Trump back. It says it across the whole damn top of the podcast. Shouldn't
right,
have to say it. There is no other alternative choices.
right.
You
Well,
are the
that's what
choice,
I said
and
that
you are the
earlier. I'm
winner.
like, there isn't anybody else. There isn't. Not that I
Right.
know of anyway.
I mean,
But
do you want him or do you want the other guy? It's like, I mean,
hell no.
it's going to be that. See, that's the choice. So,
Yeah,
if I did anything tonight, I helped try to convince you a little bit that we do need you.
yeah.
We do need you.
Well,
We
I
need
think
everyone.
we'll talk more. We can talk more about it too, just privately, and maybe you can help boost my morale a little bit about this. So, but
Well,
I like I said, even just my own experience from before, when I look back and the way I saw him before, and it was so like just sort of disgusted, and then later I said to Joe, I was like, the truth is, I didn't really know anything about him, and I didn't give him a chance, and that's the truth. And I started looking at things in a more fair way. But I don't want to act like it's not my fault at all. But these that's why I say the psychological warfare does work on people. Obviously, it does. So, but I think you have to be willing to admit it too, that you have fallen for certain things that just are not real. Just not the truth. So, um, but it's not the best, most comfortable position to be in. But how else do you grow if you can't be real with yourself? Come on.
that's
So,
true. That's true. But you do the
but
best. You do the best you can, and we're all guilty of many different things, many ideas, and sometimes being not as aware in many ways. But it doesn't mean that we're a failure. I think, but what will protect America is if you don't vote for yourself, they're going to take your name and vote for you. That is
yeah,
the scariest thing that could ever happen, because they know who the sleepers are. They watch everything. They know what censuses are. They know where you
so
are. They
true.
know where you live. That's why all this stuff was put in place. And if you don't go out and make the difference using what your representation is, they're going to utilize it for you.
Well, I'm not.
That's
That
why
ain't.
dogs vote.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that I know that's true. I mean, as soon as you said that, I'm like, yeah, I believe that thoroughly. So, yeah, I'm not going to let that happen. Thanks for swaying my mind on this, because I had really given up on any of it even being effective, you know?
It's
So
only,
good
it's
job,
only a
Michael.
discussion. I'm glad I could help. And I want to
For
thank
real.
I also want to
I
thank
can't imagine
everybody.
I'm the only one. You know, I can't imagine I'm the only person.
No, you
You
know,
know,
you're not. You're not by far. And we have several months left to get things better placed in order. And we're gonna fight. We're gonna go. We're gonna go until the last final days. At least I am, to hopefully show enough support in this country by what I do and what I talk about that may make the difference. Because I don't want it to make a difference because of me. I want to make a difference because it matters for other people. And if I can play just that little part in it, I'm happy. I truly am. And, you
I
know, I never
believe that.
wanted this show called America in Crisis. I never
No,
wanted it. I never wanted to blatantly come out and says America in crisis because
right.
boom, that's exactly what we've experienced. But
Yeah.
I think that the message in that name itself is self-explanatory to who Michael is when he comes on and tries to talk. Not that I don't
Yeah.
give respect to one's logic or theory or thought, you know, or to try to
Hmm.
persuade people, but just to look at the obvious. And as you said, you did it on your own, and you know
Yeah.
you calculated different. And all I could say is I praise you for that because that's what more people need to do. We're not
Well,
going to have total success, but I do
no.
believe that we are the power of the numbers. I do believe that.
Yeah, I did it one time, and then I just, you go through a shift, and you start questioning what is actually going on here, and yeah, it can make you feel disheartened and want to bow out altogether. But I do. You're right. I do. I see
Yeah.
the importance of it, and I believe that 100%. I didn't think of it before, but as soon as you said that, you don't use your vote, they will. I believe
They
that
will.
thoroughly. So yeah, I
They
ain't letting
already
that
have it
happen.
planned. They already have
Yeah,
it planned. They already have the
yeah.
post office manipulated. They got, believe me, they, if you look at what we found out that had happened in certain areas and criterias of areas that Mike the Pillow Man and many other people, you know, who were beat the hell done for bringing it up, that should show where the logic is. And when everybody else in America was required under a mandate to take that garbage, but the post office didn't have to, that make you really wonder why. Because mail-in ballots, you know, I mean, come
Hmm.
on, and they'll do it again. And that's what we have
Yeah,
to stop them from being able to do. We have to
right.
create probable cause of questionability. If you walk in there and said, no, you already voted, you voted for Biden, you're standing there saying, I did not reject that vote. I'm here in person. This is my ID. It's not voter ID, but here's my birth certificate. I am here with my driver's license or my state ID. I want my vote changed. And I guarantee you, we're going to change America if we stand there and do that.
Yeah, it's the only way, really. We can't we gotta have. We're in a time where we need steel running up our backs, not Jello, right?
Right.
So, um, yeah, and but it's not shocking that we get to a point where you feel beaten down and defeated, and like there's no winning this ultimate battle. But yeah, we can't have that. We can't
We
have
can
that
go, hey, look,
attitude.
we can go down fighting. If that's all that comes out of it, we might
Yeah,
have a lot of regrets. We might have a lot of time that was wasted, but at least we tried for the children.
yeah, yeah. It's very true. Very true. Well,
Well, with
thank
that
you. I
said,
appreciate your.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just was saying I appreciate you hanging out and chatting with me.
Oh, yeah, no problem, no problem. But with that said, I am coming up on my 2 hours, and I got to get up at 5:30 tomorrow because I'm going to have pavers on. We're going to be paving, so I'm going to be running now. And I do thank you for being on, and I appreciate Joe
Thank you.
sharing you with me. And I'm glad we had this conversation.
Yeah,
Uh,
me
and,
too.
and honestly, I want to thank you for your honesty. I'm, I feel totally confident that everything that you said made a difference tonight. If anybody really listens to the entirety of the demeanor of the conversation and how you are as a person and what you see now, I applaud you for where you are and what you recognize and the research. And I know we didn't
Well,
even
thank
dabble
you.
into a lot of the things that I know you do study, but
Yeah, it's all the way out there stuff.
it, it's
Yeah.
it's there's still plenty more days and times ahead to
Oh,
do
heck
more.
yeah, for sure. But
So
I think
make
this
sure you
was an
share the
important
show.
conversation.
Make sure you share the show to all your friends. Get yourself out there, and I think you do wonderful as a guest. You held your own. You're a rock
Well,
star.
thank you. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate you as always.
All right. And with that said, do want to thank everybody that listened tonight. I'm glad to come back in, do a little America in Crisis. I had a little battle I had to take care of with FB. You know who those guys are. Hopefully, we'll see some betterments and better changes in my future. If not, oh well, it'll be what it is, and I'll just accept that. But for uh, anybody else who does follow me and listens to me, May 26th, Jim Goodall will be on with me, and that's going to be pretty fabulous. I'm just going to say that, and I also have some really outstanding other guests that'll be joining in, and different types of subject matter. So I hope you'll join me on some of those other platforms that I do, like America Disclosing Uncensored and Paranormal, Cryptics, everything else, and conspiracies. It's just fun. It's conversations. It's fact. It's ancient history. It puts a lot of things in place from going back in time to where we are now in the present. And we look and we research in that. So I do thank everybody for following me, and thanks for your support and your viewership. And now, which they are calling played or something. It's a new term that they're putting out. Videos played. How many videos played, not views? It's just kind of weird. But so you get used to seeing that. So anyway, I want to thank you. I'm gonna turn in for the night, and I hope you guys out there in America turn up a notch, get heated for November, stay positive, stay focused, and stay aware. Everybody have a great night. We'll talk soon. Good night.
Good night.